All right, so in today's video, I'm going to be sharing how my client Alex went from feeling stuck and just in this self-sabotage pattern, low confidence, to really building some serious momentum in 2024. And we've only been working together for about 35 days. So if you're somebody, you're a high performer, you're an entrepreneur, but you're feeling stuck, you know that you're just not building the best habits, but you want to end that in 2024, then this is going to be a really helpful video because I'm going to walk you through the 3 things that we've done in the first 35 days of working together and how he's been able to overcome some of those things that have been holding him back. So here we go. All right, so what inspired this video and podcast in the first place was I got this text from one of my clients, Alex, on Friday. And what he said was, yesterday was a great day. I meant to send you a note. I really feel like God is pushing me in a great direction, and you're a big part of that. Thank you. And not only did it make my day, it made me realize that you can make a drastic transformation in a short period of time if you just have like the right roadmap and if you have the right tools. Because just 35 days ago, Alex and I started working together, and on our first call, one of the main things that he shared with me were some of the things that he was struggling with. And he was kind of in this self-sabotage cycle of starting something and starting to build the right habits and then slipping up in one day or one part of the day and then not following through. And that left him just really just feeling stuck and having really poor health habits, like not working out, knowing that he needs to work out, but not doing it, and knowing that he needs to not eat after 6:30 or 7:30, and just really just having low confidence at work. And it started to impact his work performance. And so we started working together. And what I want to walk you through is just kind of like the 3 things that we have done to help him go from being stuck to really building this type of momentum in a pretty short period of time. Because a lot of people that I talk to from Instagram comments, from listening to my podcast, a lot of high performers, a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with the same things. So really, where I want to start is, what was he actually struggling with? And so it really kind of came down to a couple of things. The first is just health-wise. He had kind of started to gain some significant weight during COVID and hasn't been able to lose it. He knows that like what he needs to do. He actually has a home gym, but doesn't really have the plan, doesn't really have the motivation to consistently follow through on it. And because of all of the stress and all of the overwhelm and everything that he has going on with his family and work, that led to kind of like some emotional eating, which kind of started feeding into this cycle. And as you can imagine, these decisions and these habits started to impact work performance. So at work, he was not really doing a lot of outreach, wasn't really attending conferences, wasn't really traveling. All of those things that lead to the results that you're after. But just when you're not feeling the most confident, when you're not keeping the promises that you make to yourself, you stop doing the things that will lead to the results that you want. And all of these things combined really built up this pressure to perform in this new role and really started to build that overwhelm on him. So if you can relate with these things, or if you've experienced any of these symptoms, then you know like how heavy that pressure is. You know like how much it really weighs on you when you know you should be doing something, but you're not. Or you kind of start to follow through on those new habits, but you're lacking the consistent follow through. Those are things that can really build up and eat away at your confidence. So what did we do to work through it? Kind of came down to these 3 things. The first thing that we did is we identified what was holding him back. So one of the first things that we ended up doing was listing out all of the patterns right now that were slowing him down. And we started to identify procrastination. We identified eating poor habits. We identified hitting snooze. We identified like not really having a proactive plan for his priorities in his week. And the first thing that we did is list out those patterns. And then we started to identify what are the thoughts, fears, and beliefs that he has about those activities. And once we were able to identify what some of those things were that were holding him back, not just the activities, but the actual thoughts, then what we were able to do is question those thoughts. So for example, like one of the big things that came up is that he felt like he resisted systems and accountability because it kind of limited some of his freedom. And so we were able to recognize how this resistance to systems and accountability was causing a lot of the patterns that he had. And so once we identified that as one of the main things, we were able to really replace those thoughts with more empowering ones. And we were able to kind of come up with a new mantra that systems and accountability help me become my best rather than they prevent me from being myself and being my best. It's kind of like we asked the opposite and we flipped it. And so once you understand like what is actually holding you back, typically it comes down to a thought, a fear, or belief that is causing those patterns. And once you start to come up with more empowering phrases, more empowering thoughts that are preventing those things from happening, then you're going to start to feel a little bit lighter. You're going to start to be able to consistently move through things. One of the other thoughts that I remember that came up was when he had a to-do list of, let's say, 5 or 6 different things that he wanted to do. If he didn't complete the first thing on the to-do list or the first activity, let's say it was a workout in the morning, then he almost felt like the rest of the day was like a wash. And maybe you felt that way before, where it's like you feel like if you don't get off to a good start, then the rest of the day is a loss. Then we recognize how that was a pattern that was keeping him stuck. And we started to kind of replace the thought that if I miss my morning workout, then it just means I need to focus on the next thing on my list. Or then you can adjust your schedule and make sure that you still get it in later in the day or in the evening. So once we started to recognize some of those things that were holding him back, we were able to overcome those patterns, implement kind of more empowering thoughts, systems, and beliefs, and we started to see some improvements. And then once we kind of started to see some momentum on some of those key activities, we started to implement daily and weekly systems of accountability. So I helped him understand like what are the main things that he needs to do in order to show up as his best each day. We started to talk about like what are some of the most important things that you can do on a weekly basis to review your previous week and to plan for the upcoming week. Not just things that are on your calendar, but the most impactful, the highest priority activities that are actually going to lead to the results that you want. And those were some of the things that have really started to build momentum in himself personally, in his health, and he's starting to really see some momentum in his business and or in his career as well. So those were kind of like the 3 things. And it's, if you are in a similar place, if you are stuck in this cycle of self-sabotage, of like starting something and then slipping up and then stopping that activity altogether, and then trying to work on your discipline and your motivation and trying again, and then just knowing that you're going to stop or you're not going to follow through, this is the exact process that you can follow as well to build momentum. Because it's really just having the self-awareness of recognizing like what is actually getting in your way, what are the patterns, and once you're able to remove some of those obstacles, the action becomes a lot easier, a lot more effortless, and you're able to just feel energized by the results that you're seeing. So I wanted to share these steps because I think it's something that could help you if you're in a similar place. So once we implemented those 3 things, we're very much going to be focused on consistency, very much focused on building on top of that. And now we can really step into like where he wants to go next and what his ultimate vision is. Because at the very beginning, we talked about what success looks like for him in these 3 areas: personally, work-wise, and family-wise. And we started to paint a picture of what does it look like on the other side of some of these kind of self-sabotaging patterns. And so what he started to talk about was personally, he wants to wake up early with an energizing morning routine, drinking water, reading, and exercising. At work, he wants to have a very very like strict system of knowing exactly what he needs to do on a daily basis to hit his sales targets. So that's 25% of time on biz dev, 25% on admin, and 50% on the core execution of reaching out to existing clients, potential prospects, and needle moving activities. And then start to set up different meetings with potential clients, attending conferences, traveling, and just feeling more confident and energized at work. And so once we have those two things implemented from a family perspective, he also just wants to be more present with his kids. So be more present with his kids before he goes to work, and then finish up work, feel confident, so where when he comes home, he can just be present with his kids, more intentional, kind of tech-free time with his family. So I think that this vision is very similar to a lot of the people that are going to be watching or listening to this as well. You want to feel good about yourself when you wake up. You want to feel good about yourself when you're going to bed. You want to show up at work and just know that exactly what you need to do, have the confidence to follow through. And then once you have time with your family, with your wife or your significant other, you can just show up and be present. And this vision isn't really possible unless you work through and implement these types of things, unless you identify what's holding you back, unless you replace those thoughts and those patterns, and then implement the daily and the weekly systems. So that is pretty much like what it's looked like of how we've been able to go from feeling stuck and in low confidence and not having the best habits to really actually living and showing up as this ideal version of himself. And this process is we're going to continue working together. We're going to continue to drill in on consistency and leveling up and really adopting that new identity. But as I bring it back to you, I think that this might be an opportunity for you to evaluate, to take a step back and evaluate as well. Like, where are you on your own journey? Are you feeling a little bit stuck? Are you kind of slowing yourself down because you might know exactly what you need to do, but you're not following through? If that's the case, take a look at those three things that I mentioned. Try and identify like what are the patterns and the things that are slowing you down. What are some things that you can implement to try and uncover what those patterns are, and then start to implement the right daily and weekly systems. Because the transformation that you're looking for can actually happen a lot quicker than you think if you have the right tools, if you have the right systems, and if you have the right mentor. And so that's where I come in. If you want to go through a similar process with yourself and kind of identify at a personal level, like what is slowing you down, and if you want help in overcoming that and implementing the right systems, then go ahead and book a call with me or just send me a DM on Instagram. Would love to hear a little bit more about what resonated with you from this video and if there's any way that I can help. So until next time, talk to y'all later.